Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the second shelf and to another recent reads on Sunday, in which I discuss some of the books that I've read recently. And the first book I want to talk to you about is a book that I already read in March, but is sort of a leftover. And that is Etaf Ram's book, A Woman Is No Man, published in March. And obviously I got it right when it was published. It's a debut novel, and Etaf Ram is an American writer. She lives in Brooklyn with Palestinian roots, so she's the daughter of Palestinian immigrants. And the book is a tale about Palestinian immigrants, especially women. We follow three generations of women. You have Isra, who is born in Palestine, but then is married off to Adam, who lives in Brooklyn. You have Adam's mother, Fareda, who also had an arranged marriage. And the third generation is focusing on one of Isra's daughters, Dia. So the book deals with important topics like forced marriage or arranged marriage, if you want to have a neutral term. It deals with a community, an Arab Muslim community that is very conservative. So women are confined to the house. For 90%, they only go out either with the husband or another male member of the family. And the central character is Isra. But we learn a lot also about Fareda, so the mother-in-law. We learn a lot about the relationship between the generations of women and how it slowly times slowly change, so to say, when you go into the modern world with the daughter. And yeah, it saddens me a bit to say that I didn't think the book was such a success. I mean, you can feel definitely that Etaf Ram knows what she's talking about. If you look at her biography, you know that she had an arranged marriage and that she left the marriage, that she raised the children on her own, and she knows the community and the struggle of women, and that definitely shows in the book. But it's the negative side of that is that the book feels that the author didn't have enough distance to really make it work as a novel. You have very little plot development, very little character arc. It tends to be repetitive at times when you learn about the life of women. Yeah, you see how I struggle with it, because I thought it was such an important book, and I still think you should read it if the topic interests you, and if you're interested in that voice of Palestinian immigrant women in a very conservative context. But for me, in the end, as a novel, it was not that successful, unfortunately. The second book I want to talk to you about is a memoir, and that is Glenys McNichol, No One Tells You This, published last year in July 2018. Now, this book was recommended to me by one of you, one of my subscribers, viewers, commentators. I wrote down the title, I wrote down the author, I bought the book, I read it, but I didn't write down the person who recommended it to me. And I tried to go back and think which video of mine it was that the person made this comment, this recommendation, couldn't find it anymore. I'm very sorry. So if you recommended this book to me, please let me know down in the comments so that I can thank you properly, because I thought it was a really, really great book. Glenys McNichol is an American nonfiction author. She was a media editor, and in 2012 she co-founded The List. I will leave a link to their website down below, which is a platform that wants to promote business women, women experts, and things like that. I think it's great. You should definitely check it out. And when Glenys McNichol turned 40, she started writing this memoir, exploring, re-evaluating, if you wish, her life under two premises. She wasn't married, and she didn't have any children. And she didn't want to get married, and she didn't want to have any children. So the question she asks is, what kind of life is she going to have as a woman if you don't conform to the expectation that is still a valid expectation, especially for women, to get married or at least be in a long-term relationship and to have children as a sort of an end point of your life. I thought it was really refreshing that the fact that you are 40 plus and single and childless doesn't mean that you are a failure. So she talks about 1 year in her life around her 40th birthday. She examines her work, her life goals, relationship with her family, but also with the lovers she's involved in. I thought it was really well written. And like I said, from my point of view, I thought it was a refreshing memoir about a segment of the population that is not talked about too often. So if you're interested in that subject, I can highly recommend this book. And please, if you recommended it to me, let me know. Moving back to fiction. The next book I want to talk to you about is Lisa Genova's novel Every Note Played, which came out last year in March, so it's a year ago. And I remember that I showed you this book in one of my to-be-released videos, and I just hadn't gotten around to it. You know how it goes. Oh well, but I finally read it. So Lisa Genova is probably known to you. She is a neuroscientist by trade. She studied in Harvard, and unlike, for instance, a scientist like Oliver Sacks, she doesn't write nonfiction, but she transforms certain neuroscience subjects or topics into fiction. Her most well-known book is probably still Alice, about Alzheimer's disease. But she has written a number of novels, each one focusing on a certain neurological disorder or disease. And this one, Every Note Played, is about ALS. I just have to say Steve Hawking, and you know which disease I'm talking about. Her main character in this novel is Richard, a very successful concert pianist. On the height of his success and power, he develops this disease, which of course means he can't play anymore. It starts in his right arm, in his fingers. He can't move his fingers. Then it moves to his legs. And we follow Richard through the development of this horrible disease. The other character is Richard's ex-wife, Karina, who is an immigrant from Poland, who was also a pianist, but gave up her career for various reasons, which you will learn when you read the book. Now, what I always really appreciate in Lisa Genova's novel, and this one, Every Note Played, is no different, is that she is able to portray an illness really vividly in the minute day-to-day details. What does it mean that you can't go to the toilet by yourself anymore, that you are hungry but you can't move your arms, so you can't get something from the fridge, you have to wait for your caretaker. So it's really a detailed, quite harrowing, of course, because there's no cure for this disease, a quite harrowing tale of somebody with ALS. If that's your kind of book, I mean, if maybe you've read other books by Lisa Genova, but if you want to know more about ALS, then I can certainly recommend Every Note Played. And another non-fiction read that I want to talk to you about, and that is Siri Hustvedt's essay collection, A Woman Looking at Men, Looking at Women, which was published in 2016. Now, Siri Hustvedt is an American author, non-fiction, fiction, and my if you're following my channel, you know that my relationship with Siri Hustvedt's work is ambiguous. Some books I really love. The Summer Without Men I thought was brilliant and hilariously funny. The Blazing World, about a female artist, her latest novel, I thought was brilliant and really engaging. I loved her essay about her own neurological disorder. But yeah, some books, and this was a difficult one. It's quite a tome, 500 pages, a collection of various essays. The first part is a collection of essays on art, mainly done for a specific exhibition or a catalog. Then you have a very, very long essay, almost book length, with 250 pages or something, on the dualism between brain, mind, body. And the third part are essays on the unconscious, but also on brain again, on writing. So it's quite a mix. I read this partly as a buddy read together with Charlotte from Tired Mama Tries to Read and Xian from RecentReads. Wonderful channels both. Leave a link to them down below. Please go and check them out if you haven't subscribed yet. And Charlotte and Xian, they gave up halfway through. I finished it, but it was a bit of a meh. What I didn't enjoy was there were some things that I really enjoyed. Some essays had, one spark of insight, a light bulb moment, which was really great. But I thought as a whole, the collection was suffering from the fact that if let's take the example of the art exhibits or pieces of art that she examines. If you don't know this exhibition or this artist, if you have never seen the work, it's quite difficult to understand what Hustvedt is talking about. And when we move on to the more philosophical essays, you have sort of the same thing. If you are at all familiar with the subject, most of the essays didn't really tell you anything new. If you're not familiar with the subject, they don't tell you enough. So you get lost in Hustvedt's meandering thoughts. In addition, something that my two buddy readers especially didn't like is that Hustvedt, in many of the essays, Hustvedt came across as quite snobby and arrogant. Now, I've seen many talks with her, on YouTube. I don't think that she is, but she came across like that, and I could understand that, especially Charlotte was really irked by the snobbiness and the snobbishness of Hustvedt. So, yeah, I mean, it's with 500 pages, I can't wholeheartedly recommend it to you, but if you are a Hustvedt fan, it might be something that you want to have a look at. And the last book I read recently that I want to talk to you about is fiction again, and that is Lalene Paul, The Bees, first published in 2014. Now, if you remember, maybe you probably don't, of course, but I read Lalene Paul's second novel, The Ice, which was published in 2017, I think year before last, and I quite liked it. It's an environmental thriller, ice melting, murder, things like that. And because I liked it, I wanted to check out her debut novel, which is The Bees. The novel was, I think, shortlisted for the Baileys back then in 2014, and it's now, let me tell you first, Lalene Paul. She is a British writer of fiction and plays. I think she's now working on a screenplay of this book, The Bees. She on Goodreads, she says, "I'm an introvert with the perfect job." But anyway, The Bees is, I don't want to call it science fiction, but it's set in a beehive. So you have your main character, quote unquote, is a worker bee, Flora, but she is different. She is not your usual worker bee. She has abilities that a normal worker bee doesn't have. And we see Flora's life, and we get a really in-depth glimpse into the workings of a beehive. I read various articles about how Levine Paul researched for this book. So even though the bees are made into characters, the structure of the hive and how honey is collected and how the work is divided between various bees, the workers, and the one who cares for the new bees, and then the drones, the male bees, and the queen. That is based on actual research, so it's not made up. But of course, bees don't speak, at least not that we can hear it. I thought it was a quite brilliant way of looking at, expectations of society, your place in a hierarchy, politics, and it was highly entertaining as well. So the blurb is horrendous, like The Handmaid's Tale meets Hunger Games or something like that. Complete bullshit. So don't be put off by that. But if you are interested in this kind of weird world, where you have bees, the life of bees in a completely different, shown in a completely different way, I think you might enjoy the book just as much as I did. Okay, so these were the books that I read recently. Thank you very much for watching. I hope you've enjoyed it. Let me know down in the comments, as always, whether you read any of the books that I've talked about or whether you are interested in any of them. And I'll talk to you soon in the next one. Bye-bye.